Hello, everybody. Today, I would love to share my perspective on what are entities. And for the reason that I would love to share my perspective on this topic, such a topic, is because it is something that is quite intangible because we can't see, right? For the things that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't access through our five senses, like touch, like this is like physical hearing, physical sight. It is not easy for many of us to distinguish what is what, because when it comes to metaphysical level of understanding or feelings of or experiences, many of us, when we are on our spiritual journeys, or not even on our spiritual journeys, some individuals might be unknowingly having certain entities attachment experience when they are unaware of it. So it could be in cases of schizophrenia, in cases of split personalities, split personality disorders, and it could also be in experiences of any kind of actually mental disorders. Basically, to put it into this in the simplest terms, it's because of the imbalance, okay, not balance, the imbalance within oneself would cause individuals to be very prone to experiencing entities attachment, okay. It's related to the psyche. And that is the first reason, okay. Now the second, which is the imbalance within oneself, okay. So it's all about balance. Now that's the first reason regarding balance. The second reason would be usually because when an individual is not very aware of the self, which means the internal self, the inner self, okay, that's what I'm referring to. When an individual is not centered in oneself, aka not knowing oneself very much, okay, not having self-awareness, not having enough clear sense of identity, clear sense of worth, and clear sense of self. Now this would then cause an individual to experience entities attachment, like being more prone to it, because individuals would be unable or having a hard time to distinguish what is what. Like, is this my thought, or is this like, where does this even come from? Why do I hear voices? Why do I see things that I'm not supposed to? It's like I feel so weird, but I don't know where all this come from. Maybe it's about me. So this could be one result due to entities attachment, and usually it's because of these two reasons, major reasons. The first one would be imbalance within oneself. The second reason would be not having a strong sense of self, understanding who am I, what am I. Because when one understands oneself very much, one would then be able to distinguish, okay, what is mine and what is not mine. Now, that being said, this part, what I just said, would be the reasons behind contributing to entities attachment. Now, for the second part, I would like to speak on what are entities. Right? It's very important for us to also understand what are actually entities, because it's such a vague topic, and it's such a you can't touch it, right? You can't touch it. We hear a lot about how other people say, mentioning entities, but not really having a pinpointing definition, so to speak, when it comes to this kind of scenarios or experiences. So I would love to share my definition when it comes to entities. So entities, we can actually see it as like, in one way, from one perspective, we can see it as a cluster of thought forms, that would then form a certain personality. Okay, it's kind of like an individual. Imagine it's like a person, because everyone thinks differently, right? So now entities are basically kind of like a cluster of thought forms. So it's the mind. Is part of, there are different kinds of entities, and the reason is that there are different kind of personalities. Each of us has a different personality. It is basically a blend of different archetypes together that bring about every one of us having a different personality. Okay, so from one perspective, we can see entities, or an entity is basically a specific personality, or say a cluster of thought forms. And when all this coming together of the thought forms running, it's like a programming in the computer, okay, that becomes a certain personality. It's the mind. Entities. We can see entities as they operate in the collective unconscious. Okay, as referring to Carl Jung's theory. So basically, is the entities operate in the collective unconscious. So that is why individuals would then be attached, or the entities would attach to individuals like us, many of us, without us knowing it, if we are unconscious. So that would be the third part that I would mention about what is the entity's attachment like, and certain more information on it. So now, that was the first perspective that I just mentioned, which was is like a personality, a cluster of thought forms, and also is operated on the level of the collective unconscious, right? That's the first perspective. Now, second perspective of seeing this is actually the same thing, okay? It's just we're using different angle to look at the same thing. Now, the second way of seeing it, of entities, is kind of like a blend of different coffee beans. Okay, so that's the same as a blend. Okay, if you see, you can have different coffee beans, and then if you mix in different types of coffee beans, you roast the coffee beans differently, it gives off a different flavor, right? So that is what does it mean? It's a blend. And so this is the same for entities. Now, these entities are basically different blends of archetypes and, so to speak, personalities, and that would cause them to have different ways of speaking, different ways of responding. So it's kind of like AI. Okay, so the second perspective is kind of like they are a blend of different coffee beans, but we can see them also as AI. They respond in a way in the thought form. Okay, so maybe I should put it as the third one, which is like the AI thing. The third perspective of seeing it is AI. All right, it's like when you talk, when you hear voices, when you hear things, these are actually kind of like a chat GPT that you connected to without knowing it. So when they speak to you and you respond, they would then respond. Okay, so that's the third perspective, which is kind of like AI. That is why it is something that's quite interesting, but also if we're unaware of it, we would be putting much more attention and our focus onto this, responding to such entities. And if the entities are more prone to a negative temperament themselves, not that they are alive, it's just that they are like programming. Okay, it's thought, mind, it's in the collective unconscious. All right, so that is why if we keep putting our focus, or we focus our energy onto it, responding or reacting, or having certain emotions being triggered within us when we hear any kind of voices or seeing any things, okay, in our mind's eye, it means that we are actually contributing this data, right? We're contributing, we're responding to this chat GPT, and thus they would keep responding to us. Okay, so that being said, let's go into the third part. That would be, what are entities attachment? So when it comes to entities attachment, it's very important to understand that we are not the entities. Okay, it's very important to distinguish that first, because when we hear voices or when we see things in our mind's eye, because that is something when individuals, be it you experience mental disorders or you are on the spiritual journey, both ways are very prone to experiencing entities attachment, or not even simply just attachment. Let's just put it in the perspective of connection, like you just connected to a certain entity in a way. But then people might be like, why, how could that be suddenly be connected, or linked? How would that become how would it come into place? One of the reasons would be because of trauma. Okay, that is a very common reason. A very common and most prevalent reason is that when a person has unhealed trauma from within, okay, now every trauma has a theme. Certain, like, I'm gonna give an example. One type of traumas out of all the traumas that a human could experience, say, it would be in the danger mode. Okay, whenever a person, because of a past experience, a traumatic experience, whenever this person sees the color red, say, and this person would feel a little bit agitated and alerted. Okay, even though the red color doesn't have to mean that, right? Red can actually mean passion, right? But for this particular individual, when seeing the color red, this person could feel alerted. Now, this is a trauma. Like, this is a sign to tell us that this could be a potential trauma that we need to look within to see what it is. So what does it mean is that all of this kind of fear or negative emotions are actually guiding us to look within to understand what is the root cause of my experience of such negative emotions. Why am I being triggered? Okay, so once we understand why am I so triggered whenever I see the color red, for example, okay? So look deeper, feel it. We don't really have to think about it, but just feel it and just sit with it and just, like, let it pass through, allow it to happen, and understand that this is something that I can look within to understand more about myself, so to release myself, so to free myself from any kind of negative experiences, okay, or say negative emotions. Now, this kind of trauma, when this trauma is actually, what does it mean? It means this person feels danger. Okay, this person feels danger. What does it mean when somebody feels danger all the time or like hypervigilant? It means insecurity. So this is the root cause, meaning the keyword is insecurity. But then, of course, there would be reasons or contributing factors to cause a person to experience intense insecurity. Okay, now it could be from childhood, it could be from there was an accident when this person was like as a kid. Whatever it is, the keyword is insecurity. So this insecurity wound or trauma would attract in entities having similar frequency. So it's all about frequency. So imagine it's kind of like a radio. How the radio receives different kind of stations, like FM 49.9, whatever the station is through frequency, right? So it's simply that matching. It's a match. It's like how the radio would, having that range, and once there's a station, the frequency that can match with that wavelength, it would then be able to receive the information, right? This is the same for us. between us and the entities and anything actually in the universe. So when we operate in the state of insecurity or fear, this symbolizes a certain type of frequency. So when this frequency, when an individual is operating in this frequency, any kind of entities that are associated with such a frequency as well would then be very easily, it becomes like a match with you or with an individual. So that is why it is not something that these entities can come to find you or come to attack you. No, not in this sense. It's just a matching system. So the key here to say detach oneself from the entities is to raise your vibration. When one raises one's vibration, okay, so from fear to reasoning, you first have to understand, right? Reasoning has a higher frequency, okay, and then peace, okay, and then joy, and then, okay, it keeps going up. Gratitude is also a very high vibrational emotion. So embrace more gratitude, moments in our daily lives could really help us to raise our vibration, okay, our personal frequency. So this is the way. This is the most direct and efficient way whenever we experience entities attachment. So raising one's frequency. For example, you can listen to songs. Songs are very important, okay? If we listen to music that are, say, like classical music, or like just, what do you call that? Like music that are just without any kind of lyrics. I forgot what that genre of music is. But just listen to music that are no one singing, no one really having any kind of lyrics, or listen to nature's sound, okay, the rain, the birds, and the trees. There are many kind of videos like this on YouTube, or even on Apple Music. It's like entire playlist. So it's the nature sound, okay? All these sounds, music, hold much higher frequency than the pop songs. So because pop songs involve a lot of emotions, usually they talk about negative emotions, so that would be on a much lower vibrational level, okay? So if one wishes to raise one's internal frequency, that would be a very efficient tool that would be through music, because you can access it anywhere, right? You just put on the headphone, right? So and also eating habit. If you eat more vegetables and not like a lot of snacks, or say junk food, people calling it that way, you can also raise your internal frequency, your own frequency, and so naturally you would not be so prone to attracting entities having lower frequency, because your frequency has already been up, and so that you would not be matching with those entities, okay? And that would be the first thing, which is raising your own frequency. Now the second thing would be being conscious that whatever you hear is not you, especially those negative comments, okay? That's not you, okay? But trust your intuition though. So sometimes we might mix up intuition with voices, entities, okay? Now the best way to distinguish is that when we hear anything, ask oneself that, is this a positive? Do I feel positive about it? Ask oneself, do I feel positive about this, about what I hear, or what I just heard, or what I saw? If it's not, it means it's not mine. It's not mine as in I can consciously understand that, okay, I see you, I hear you, but I choose not to tap into it. I choose not to react. I choose not to respond. I simply choose to understand within myself, and I simply choose to sit with it, and I choose to raise my own frequency and stay calm. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this video and find these contents helpful and or useful. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more contents like this. Okay, I will see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye bye.